At 9:12 a.m., an engineer pauses before sending a message. The issue is small and unclear specification in a shared document, but the choice of wording feels less small. She considers two options: a carefully softened note in the group chat, or a direct question sent to the document owner. She chooses the direct message. Within minutes, the ambiguity is resolved. No meeting is scheduled. No additional stakeholders are drawn in. The document is updated, and the day continues without disruption. This pattern repeats across workplaces every day when clarity is at stake. Communication tends to become more direct. In many work environments, deadlines compress decision-making. Under time pressure, people rely on cognitive shortcuts that favor speed over nuance. Direct communication, clear questions, explicit requests, unambiguous feedback reduces the number of interpretive steps required to act. Instead of just checking if the current version aligns with what we discussed last week, a message becomes, is Section 2 final, or should we revise it? The second form minimizes inference. It removes the need to read tone, recall past conversations, or guess intent. Under constraints, clarity becomes more efficient than politeness rituals. Over time, teams learn that directness is not a personality trait, but a response to shared pressure. Workplaces often operate in environments where small misunderstandings can scale into costly errors. A vague instruction can lead to rework, missed deadlines, or compliance issues. Direct communication acts as a form of risk control. Consider a warehouse supervisor noticing a labeling inconsistency. Saying, "Let's double-check the labels when possible," leaves room for delay or selective interpretation. Saying, "Stop outbound shipments from line B until labels are verified," creates a clear, immediate action. The shift toward direct language is not about authority alone. It reflects an environment where ambiguity carries measurable cost. When the stakes are visible, indirect phrasing becomes less practical. Repeated exposure to these consequences trains people to favor clarity, even in low-stakes interactions. Direct communication also functions as a subtle signal. In many professional settings, clarity is interpreted as competence. A concise question suggests preparation. A specific request implies understanding of the workflow. For example, asking, "Can you help with the report?" signals uncertainty about scope. Asking, "Can you review the data validation section for accuracy?" signals familiarity with the task and respect for the other person's time. Over repeated interactions, colleagues learn to associate directness with reliability. The behavior spreads not through formal policy, but through social reinforcement. Clear communicators are easier to collaborate with. In meetings, indirect language often slows group decisions. Phrases like "maybe we could consider" or "what if we explored" can be useful for brainstorming, but when a decision point arrives, groups tend to shift toward direct proposals. Option A meets compliance requirements. I recommend we proceed with it. This transition marks a cognitive shift from exploration to commitment. Direct statements reduce diffusion of responsibility by making positions visible. When preferences are explicit, coordination becomes possible. Teams that repeatedly face complex decisions learn this pattern. Over time, the moment of transition arrives earlier in discussions, shortening the path from ambiguity to action. The physical and digital environment also nudges communication style. Shared dashboards, ticketing systems, and task boards reward concise updates. Character limits in chat tools encourage brevity. Status indicators blocked, in progress. Complete favor categorical clarity over narrative explanation. When systems are designed for quick scanning, indirect phrasing becomes friction. A message that requires interpretation slows the flow of information. In these environments, direct communication is less a personal choice and more an adaptation to the interface. New hires often begin with more indirect language. especially when navigating unfamiliar hierarchies. They soften requests, add qualifiers, and avoid explicit disagreement. Over time, as they observe which messages receive faster responses and clearer outcomes, their phrasing changes. Questions become shorter. Feedback becomes more specific. Disagreement becomes framed as risk identification rather than personal opinion. This shift rarely occurs through formal training. It emerges from repeated observation. Direct messages move work forward. Direct communication does not eliminate tact, it relocates it. Instead of softening the core message, diplomacy appears in timing, channel choice, and context. A manager might deliver clear feedback privately rather than in a group setting. A colleague might ask a direct question in a thread, rather than interrupting a meeting. The message remains explicit, but the delivery acknowledges social dynamics. Across industries, the preference for direct communication often emerges from the same pressures: limited time, measurable risk, coordination demands, and systems optimized for speed. What begins as an individual choice becomes a collective norm through repetition and reinforcement. Yet even in environments where directness is common, moments of ambiguity persist. Hesitations before sending a message, drafts rewritten to adjust tone, pauses in meetings before someone states a clear position. In those brief intervals, the balance between clarity and caution is still being negotiated.